Perfect.
All right, everybody, what's going on? And welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk. Of course, this is the show we cover the SWAC inside and out. And I am your tour guide around the SWAC C Wells coming at you. And today we got a special guest, man. We have the all-time leading rusher in the SWAC and all-time leading rusher at Southern University, Mr. Lenard Tillery, in the house. He's gonna be joining us in a second. So y'all make sure y'all hit that subscription button, man. You know, I'm gonna try to do more videos like this to kind of give everybody their flowers while they're here. So with that being said, man, y'all make sure y'all hit that Patreon, patreon.com/swagtalk. $3 level, $5 level, get members only group chat, and also access to a members only roundtable. So without any further ado, man, let's go ahead and get this thing kicked off and welcome Mr. Lenard Tillery to the show. How are you doing today?
Oh man, look, I can't complain. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no problem. Like I said, it's all about, you know, showing the love and appreciation for the hard work you put in. So we're gonna start at the very beginning, man. When did you start playing football?
I probably started around 7 or 8 years old. I would always play, you know, at the playground and things like that at recess. But I think the first time I played actual football on the team was about 8 years old with the Baton Rouge Bears. And so got a lot of time as linebacker. Well, I'm not sorry. I didn't get too much time. They had a guy in front of me that was amazing. And so I didn't really get to play that much. I kind of sat on the sideline and watched him. I tried to play kicker a little bit and wasn't too good at that. So I sat on the bench for the first couple of years just watching and learning.
So when you finally kind of cracked the rotation, you was a running back?
Yeah, like I said, actually, you know, I played defense for the better part of my career up until high school. It was always just amazingly athletic and fast guys ahead of me at running back, especially for like all the brick. I didn't really play running back primarily. You know, I did both sides of the ball as brick, but, you know, my last year in brick, I did really good at running back. And so I said, you know what, I like carrying the ball. I'm going to try to do this in middle school. And then I got to middle school, and it was just defense. Got to high school. Freshman year, I was starting on defense, more or less starting on defense, I'd say, but playing a lot just on defense and special teams. And then sophomore year, we had 2 all-district running backs that were seniors. Both of them ended up getting hurt before the season started. And so I started at running back that year, and that was the last time I got to see defense.
So you are the epitome of next man up. You know, always got to be ready. You know, you got to take advantage of every opportunity that you get. McKinley, the Big Blue, man. How was your career at McKinley?
It was a storybook. I'll say that much. We did a lot better than people expected us to. We won some big games, at least for us, but we didn't never have the success that we wanted, you know, if that makes sense. We had some great seasons where we went 7-3, 8-2. We had one season where we went 1-9, you know, versus a 9-2 before that. So my win record is higher than my losses, but at the same time, we never played on that championship level. You know, every kid in Louisiana wants to play in a Superdome in the championship. And we had those aspirations, but we never got to that point. And as far as my personal career at McKinley, I feel like I did good. If you ask anybody, they're going to say, you know, he did an amazing job, but I just had too many injuries. It was a roller coaster of 4 years for sure.
So do you kind of label yourself as a more physical style of running back?
Unfortunately, I do. And like I said, that comes from when I played brick, my nickname was, Little Truck for LT. Lenard Tomlinson, Lawrence Taylor, all of those guys were like my idols. When I used to grow up watching them, and so everybody called me Little Truck. So I would go out of my way to try to truck somebody over instead of just putting a juke on them or putting a move on them. So at 5'8", 5'9" at the time, I just thought I was 6'4" and 300 pounds and I could just run through everybody. But I had to learn the hard way that sometimes it's better to just put a move on somebody and get past them.
So for people out there who don't know, can you describe Baton Rouge football? I always talk about how it's kind of more it's kind of different feel around here.
Yeah.
Can you describe it?
If I had to describe Baton Rouge football, I say it's very aggressive, and it's a traditional Southern offense. It's not much of the high flying, high passing. We more of a pounded, who's stronger. It's gonna be 4 quarters of just tough football. Lately, it has been changing. You're starting to see a lot of programs with quarterbacks that can pass the ball, that can kind of move around with multiple different players. But for the most part, it's a very, very physical brand of football down here in Baton Rouge. So, it's nice to be cute and everything like that, but you're going to have to get physical and dirty to win some games.
Yeah, and I think even the fact that the city it's a relatively decent sized city, but it's kind of close knit. Everybody know each other. You playing schools against guys you probably played brick ball with, probably know them. People got family members. It's connected, and there's intense rivalry. So I think a lot of that kind of makes it stand out even more.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Like I said, a lot of guys I played with it against in elementary school, all the way up to middle school to high school. It was like these are guys I grew up with. And so just like you said, whenever it came to those Friday nights, it was personal on that field. It was about winning, but it was also about bragging rights. And, to this day, this is what, 2023, so I graduated 11 years ago, and we still talk about those games to this day.
Yeah, so I mean, you can't really take it away, and then it carries on. In the college, a lot of guys had an opportunity to play against each other. We got an early comment from the chat. Did you have an opportunity to play against St. Aug?
No, my goodness, no. Thank the Lord. I mess with you. No, look, I would have loved to play against St. Aug and Leonard Fournette. I believe he was what was he, 2 years behind me or 3 years behind me?
I
So
want to say
he was
three, if my
two or
math is
three, like
right.
I said. All I know is when I was a senior, no, I'm sorry. Okay, it was 2 years then. Because when I was a junior, he was a freshman. And when I was a sophomore, I think that was my first like breakout season at McKinley. Everybody was talking about this eighth grader at St. Aug. And I was just like, man, who the heck is this guy? He's not even in high school yet. And they talking about, he's better than me and all this other stuff. And so I believe the next year when I went as a junior, I went to see him play as a freshman. And I saw him and I was just like, there's no way that guy is a freshman in high school. And so that was, it followed me. By the time I got to Southern, he had said he was gonna commit to LSU. So when I was at Southern, he was at LSU, and it was like one of those things where I watched the game if they had their game before us, and I'd be like, okay, he ran for 212 yards. I gotta beat that. I gotta give more touchdowns to him. It was a constant thing in the back of my mind, like, hey, look, I gotta be the best in Louisiana.
So what you're saying is we gotta thank Leonard Fournette for you setting these records at Southern.
He definitely had something to do about it.
he
I'll
don't
put
he
that
don't know it
into
though.
Yeah, he doesn't know it. He might know it. Who knows? They had a couple of pieces they had like in the paper and things like that. But my competitive drive pushed me to be what I consider to be the best that I could be at that point. I know Jonte Abad Prairie View. He was another guy. I pretty much came up with him, and so he ended up going to Prairie View. I went to Southern, and so it was constantly in the back of my head. Like I watch every possible running back you could even think of. I love watching running backs. Like I said, Daniel Thomas was a big out of growing up. Reggie Bush, of course, for every running back. They had Arnold Walker, that was at Alcorn. He was a great running back. So it was just, I would watch these guys and I would say, I want to be better than that. And so anything I saw, I wouldn't mind taking a move or looking at the way they read their holes, things like that. I would try to take what they do and make it better.
Hey, that's that. I think with anything in life, you take inspiration from people and you take bits and pieces and you use what works for you, and it obviously worked out good for you. Um, Coming out of high school, how was your recruitment? Did you get any traction on the recruiting trail?
Me and my dad really got after. He was bigger on the recruit side than I was. I kind of was in the mindset where if I just make plays and I do well, then teams are gonna come and they're gonna get after me. And obviously, that wasn't the case. By the time I went to my junior year, I had a few schools reaching out. I was going to different camps: Texas Tech, Baylor, Northwestern in Chicago, and then your local camp, Southeastern, Northwestern, and Natchitoches and things like that. And I got quite a bit of buzz going into my senior year, but the most significant was Northwestern in Chicago. I went up there to their camp, ran a great 40, did good on the one-on-ones, just kind of blew it out of the water. And they pretty much gave me a verbal offer where, if I could rush for, I think it was like 300 yards in the first 3 games, then they would go ahead and offer me a scholarship. And so I was pretty much locked in. I was like, okay, well, look, this is the school I'm going to. I don't really need to talk to anybody else. Northwestern and Natchitoches, they had put an offer on the table. It was a lot of schools reached out. It was all verbal. It was nothing, I guess, solid in that aspect. But I really had a great relationship with the Northwestern in Chicago. And so when I came out my jamboree in my senior year, I ended up dislocating my shoulder. And so all of the schools that had been reaching out and everybody else talking to me kind of just disappeared totally. And the only school that was constantly on me was Southern University. And I wouldn't even say Southern University, but Chad Germany. He was the OC at the time at Southern University. And years before, he had been the head coach at Capital, one of our biggest rivals at McKinley. So whenever he got to Southern, he always told me, hey, look, if I get a college opportunity, I'm going to make sure I'm going to come and get you. And so when I ended up hurting my shoulder, he was there literally every day, calling me, texting me, talking to me. And it was never about football. It was always just, how are you doing? How's your family doing? How you doing mentally? How you doing in school? And with all other coaches from Northwestern and Baylor to Texas Tech, all these different schools just disappearing on me, it had me in a depressed and like a mindset where I didn't really I almost lost the love for football. But Coach Germany, he kind of just he stayed on me. So when I ended up coming back towards the end of the year, I ended up still rushing for like 800 in 4 games. I put 200 just on anybody, they put me on the field against. And so I was like, well, I'm gonna just go to school. And then Coach German was like, man, you don't want to waste that talent. At least come to Southern and give it a chance. Thought about it. I was like, thought about it. Talked to my dad about it, prayed about it. Then I don't know what it was that was like that turning point for me. I had the Southern sweatshirt I used to always wear, and it was a girl at school. She came to me and she was like, "Oh my God, you going to Southern?" And she was so excited about it. And I was like, "I don't know." And she was like, "My mom went to Southern, and my dad went to Southern, and my cousin went to Southern. I want to go to Southern." And I was like, this is somebody that I had been overlooking, for all of these other schools out there. But I guess I started to really like think about the history of it, how much I had been up there at the different games, at the parades, and I said, I think I'd like to go to Southern. So I called Coach Germany. He brought it in. He said, look, we don't have a scholarship for you, but you can walk on, and I could just guarantee you're gonna have the opportunity to play. And so I said, all right, look, that's all I want is the opportunity to compete.
And compete you did. So we're gonna jump directly to your freshman year. How was that season for you?
So my freshman year, they actually redshirted me. That was with Coach Stump Mitchell. And like I said, Coach Stump Mitchell and Coach Elvis Joseph were two of the biggest reasons I went, because they both played in the league, and that was obviously something I wanted to do. And so with two guys that had been in the league that knew how things went, that was major for me. I was like, I get to learn from guys that have actually been there. So I went into my first year, once again as a walk-on. I was invited to camp, so I got to go to the camp. Man, I'm talking about, had an amazing time adjusting to the speed of the game. It was much faster than high school, but at the same time, I was looking for that next push to make me better. And so I competed well during camp, and towards the end of the camp, I think it was like a week, maybe a week and a half from our first game, I ended up coming down wrong at practice, and I had like a bruised rib or something like that. It was something minor. I had like a bruised rib, so I had to set out of practice for like 2 or 3 days. Came back the next week, and I'm thinking, hey, look, they about to throw me in the game. I'm about to get opportunity. And so we get all the way to North New Mexico, and we in the meeting before the game. And coach, like, he was like, at the time, Sylvester Ezekwe was the starting running back. So he's like, Sly, hey, look, man, I need you to go out there. You need to be looking at the tackles. I need you to get in between, find the crease. JJ was our second string, another senior. He's like, JJ, you our power guy. Look, I need you to go in there and pound it. And then he was like, he went through everybody. And then when he got to me, he was like, Till, you redshirting. And he just kept talking like nothing happened, And so I'm sitting there and I'm just like, I was just like, what? What are you talking about? Red shirt? And I was like, oh no, look, you can't be serious. I can't red shirt, And so yeah, it was a crazy season. They relieved Stump Mitchell of his duties after the third game. They lost to Mississippi Valley. And so, me and Stump had an agreement where I would, come and walk on, but then the next year I would get a full scholarship. And so when they relieved him, that offer pretty much walked out the table. So I had to go into that spring competing for the position. I had a really good spring. I can't say the guys on defense liked me too much because I was on what do they call it? All American. What they used to call me, All American practice player. That's what they used to say. Because I used to be at practice trying to give them hell. So we got to that spring, and a lot of guys on the defense was just after me because I was just trying to mess over them as much as I could during the fall. But it all worked out. I ended up coming into my next year, my redshirt freshman year, as a starter. And so I just like everything else in my life, I got a little ahead of myself, and I just knew it was gonna be, easy. We was gonna blow it out the water, and I ended up getting hurt in camp again. One of my teammates went low on me and tapped my knee the wrong way, and so they kind of just were precautious about that. Didn't know what it was, so went to the doctor, and it ended up just being my LCL. Nothing major, but it was still just painful. And so they sat me out the first 2 games. And that was just horrible. I just hated sitting on the sideline watching my team play. I just hate being hurt. And once again, I was kind of in that position where it was like, all right, well, who's going to be the starter when he gets back? But we lost both games. I think that was to Houston and Northwestern. And we started off
that
0-2.
Northwestern game was ugly.
Oh, my goodness. But, for the people that don't have a background on that, Anthony Ballance said he talked about, he's like, man, look, what's the trash? We could beat them. And the type of guy I am, I agree with him 100%. I was like, we got to just go out there and play our game. But, obviously that lit a fire under them, and they just, oh, man, they came out ready to play. So, but that's just the way it is in Southern. A lot of people gave him flack about that. But I said, hey, look, man, that's the way I feel. I don't mind that you said it. I wish I could have been out there, so we could have battled it out. But unfortunately, I didn't even travel that game. So when we came back, everybody was kind of talking, oh my goodness, Coach Odoms, he's not doing too well. And everybody, how it is when you lose.
Oh yeah.
Everybody negative, and everybody got some bad stuff to say. But I was looking forward to it. I wasn't actually supposed to come back until week 4. But with the 0-2 start, I was like, oh, no, I have to come back, immediately. I'm going to have to just wrap this thing up, and we just had to get after it. And, that Prairie View game was probably, I say it was definitely top 5 games in my career just because of the fireworks show that happened that game with your Courtney Berry and your Jonte Abear and the quarterback they had, and Dre Joseph came out. It was just an amazing game. But for the people that don't know, I think we were down 21, 28 points at halftime.
Yeah, I think it was down 28, and it looked like Prairie was gonna run us
Oh
out of there.
yeah.
And
look,
all of a sudden the offense just started clicking.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like I said, that was the turning point for our season. It was just that spark. Like I said, I think I scored right before halftime. That was my first collegiate touchdown. It was like 33 yards, I think. It was a nice run. I'm talking about, it just opened up for me, and I saw it, and I just boom, I hit it. Then after that, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm good. I'm settled in. This ain't practice no more. This is the game. I can do this, And once I got that confidence in me, we got in that locker room at halftime, and we were just, pumping everybody up. Let's go, man. Look, we got this. We ain't got to worry about nobody else. Forget the fans, because at that point, I believe a lot of fans had left. At halftime, we came out. After halftime, we came out, and it was like the stands was empty. Everybody was just like, oh, my goodness, they about to get blown out again. Odo's about to get fired. Man, the conversation, I was just like, okay, whatever. We blocked all of that out, and then I ended up scoring like 3 touchdowns that game. Dre threw for like 6. and Lee Doss had like over 200 yards receiving. And so, you know, it was just, I'm talking about down to the wire. The final score was 62-59. You know, it was crazy. We had all types of articles written about us, how much offense was in the game, ended up going to overtime. But that was the spark for our season right there. After we won that game, because Prairie View was touted to win that side of the division that year. And so when we beat them, it kind of put everybody on notice, like, hey, okay, Southern, they for real this year. You know, let's see what they're really about. And so, I mean, week after week, it was all close games. I don't think we blew anybody out that season. Now, let me think about it. No, we did blow out Mississippi Valley, I believe. And that was payback for the year before. But everybody else, it was tight. Oh, yeah. We had to get them back. But we went in overtime with Alabama A&M. We lost to Alcorn and to Jackson that year. And that was, like I told you earlier, Arnold Walker went absolute beast mode at the end of that game. And, you know, trucked over like 4 or 5 people and, you know, scored on the first play of overtime. And that was just like a crushing moment. That year, I believe Alcorn really had an amazing team. But, you know, they must have put too much juice into beating us. They let Jackson take that winning spot. And Jackson had an amazing team that year, too. Boy, they were loaded.
Yeah, they beat us that year.
With talent. Oh, yeah. Like I said, Coach Comedy, and that was probably, you know, I'm not going to ever say anybody made a stupid decision, but by letting him go, I believe Jackson made a big error letting him go because he had that program at the top tier, you know, for years and years and years. But once again, either championship to bust. But like I said, that was Dre's coming into year. Still, I believe one of the greatest Southern quarterbacks, if not one of the greatest SWAC quarterbacks of all time. It was just impossible to go against him that year. He was dropping dimes. I'm not going to even talk too much about myself because I feel that I did good, but obviously, you know, in my mind, I didn't do anywhere near what I believed I was, you know, capable of doing that year. But we ended up winning the championship, you know, and at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, getting that ring.
Yeah, I think you that year. I think you were a guy who kind of, you may not have, you know, felt like it, but you were a guy who had a role that you played, and you played it well. But that was the passing offense first and foremost that year.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Dre took a step from 12 to 13 that I haven't seen very many quarterbacks take. Lee Doss was uncoverable. I mean, you know, Willie Quinn, you know, and just a sidebar on Willie Quinn, man. I remember when Southern signed him, people was like, man, that dude's 5'5", man. What is he ever gonna, you know what I'm saying? I used to love to sit by visiting fans, opposing fans before a game, and he come on the field, and they're like, man, that dude is not gonna do nothing. And then by the end of the game, they dapping you up because he didn't toe him up.
Oh man, funny story. The first time I saw Willie at Southern University, we were all checking in, getting ready for camp. I thought he was somebody's little brother. Oh man, I was like, there's no way. Look, and I'm not gonna lie, I had the same mentality. There's no way he could do anything. And I believe the first practice, first time I ever seen him have a rep, he routed up our best corner and made him look horrible. And I was just sitting there looking at this like, why is this dude so quick? Like his quick twitch is amazing. And like I said, that's another guy I used to watch all the time and just study his moves, and whatever moves I could kind of emulate, I would take out of his book. But a lot of his stuff was just, you know, you couldn't do it unless you was Willie Quinn.
Yeah, he was an instinctual guy, man. I used to just like to watch him even when the ball wasn't in his hands. Teams respected him so much that they would follow him even if he didn't have the ball because they just did not want to get beat by him. They'd get beat by somebody else. But that offense that year was just tremendous, and the championship game was a wild affair. Overtime, and you know we all know how that game ended, but thank God it ended our way.
Oh yeah, thank God he was one step in the wrong direction.
Yes, and you know they say football is a game of inches, and it really is the next situation.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Like I said, but freshman year was a great year just to get settled, to see what SWAC football is all about, and you know to reach the highest goal of SWAC football at that time. We didn't have the Black College National Championship, so that was an amazing way to start my Southern University career.
All right, so let's move on to your redshirt sophomore year. You kind of started to get more of the load, and your numbers started to go up. New quarterback that year, Austin Howard, basically was QB most of the year. how was that team to play on with a young guy as opposed to a veteran quarterback the year before?
Well, I guess going into the year, we knew that we would have to lean more so on the running game than the passing game that year. And like I said, that went into that decision to bring in a plethora of different running backs, transfers, and everything like that. And at that time, I still wasn't on full scholarship going into that next year. I got a partial just to, kind of play and to be around, which wasn't an issue to me until I learned, that a lot of these transfer guys were coming on full scholarships. So I was just like, man, this is odd. Why are we bringing in all these different running backs on full scholarship? I don't even have full scholarship. So that entire spring was weird to me. Like I said, now that I'm older, I understand it. Your transfers is, I guess, where you want to be at, especially coming from your SWAC schools, things like that. Transfers are like highly coveted. They want all of these transfer guys because they bring in I guess that I'm not sure what it'd be, the publicity from the media and other SWAC schools. Okay, getting these big name guys or whatever, but they brought in all these different guys, and I was like, man, look, these guys, they nothing. They not better than me. And so that kind of got into my head a little bit, where I was just like, man, I don't see why they're doing this. I was a little upset about it, and I don't think it was until that fall camp when they brought in Tyree Bracken. All the other guys, no disrespect to them, but I feel like I could compete with these guys. I'm better than these guys. When they brought in Tyree Bracken, former White Castle running back, I believe he transferred from Southern Miss. When I tell you this guy could walk on water, oh my goodness, this dude he was so fast. And I remember it like it was yesterday. He ran an outside zone. He put his foot in the ground and started going like on a 90-degree angle, but he never changed speed. It's like he got faster when he made that cut. And so when I saw him make that cut, that's kind of like what triggered me to like turn that switch back on. Because at the time I was kind of just in my own head, like, oh, they trying to mess over me, and they don't want to let me play and all this other crap. But when he made that one cut, it was like I woke up from a daze and I was like, man, this dude is a real deal. Like, this is some real competition right here. And so that like drove me to work even harder than I had ever worked before, just so I could get faster and try to liken my game so I could be better than him. Because like I said, I'm not gonna lie to you, at that time he was physically better than me, and emotionally better than me, of course, because I was so upset about the other running backs. But I didn't start until I believe the fourth game that season. I played behind all the other guys. I was fifth string when that season started. And so by the time we got to the third game, which was Prairie View, I was at second string because of injuries and academic issues with the other guys, the transfers that were coming in. But I was still behind Tyree. And then Tyree ended up going down that game against Prairie View. And I ended up coming back. I had like 2 touchdowns, 130 something yards. And then after that, I was like, all right, I got to keep this at a high level. I got to, get after it, because if this guy get back, man, it's over with. So like I said, he pushed me to be like the best version of myself that year. And like I said, Austin, a lot of people talk about, young guy, but he came in diligent. He came in getting after it. He saw that championship before. Him and Dre had a personal relationship. They both went to the same high school. So Dre was already like a mentor for him. So, me and Austin used to always talk and say, hey, look, we're going to have to be the ones that lead this offense. Willie stepped up, took a bigger role on special teams and at receiving. So that offense really didn't fall off too much from the year before. And so it was just, week after week, it was constantly big game after big game. I have a big game, Willie have a big game, Austin have a big game. If you can't stop the big three, you're not going to stop Southern that year. That's just the way it was.
Oh yeah, and that offense scored a lot of points. I had to pull it up just to look at the numbers again. You hit 51 on Pine Bluff, 35 against A&M, which was a 1-point win. Put 42 on Jackson, which you can't never look down on. And hit 44 on Valley, but that Bayou Classic that year, man, 52-45. I think that was the goal line stand.
Oh yeah,
that was a crazy game. Can you talk about that game if you got any memories of that game?
Oh man, look, I can't get the memories out of my head. Coming into that week, it was so much, and that's the best type of game as far as the Bayou Classic, when both teams have a lot on the line, when both teams are going on, and Bayou Classic is always going to be a big game. If both teams are 0-9 going into it, people still going to go, it's still going to be hyped up. But that year we were both playing for that berth into the championship, and so man, it was just the hype going into that game was just next level, man. And then with the bye week right before, you could feel the tensions, just like I said, I had different guys. Chad Williams, I had played against him in high school. A lot of other guys on Grambling teams, so everybody was already like just talking that talk online. And so coming to that game, the energy was just electric. And like I said, our defense was already on another level. And so I believe that was one of our first times really being tested, like you said, into that last play. Offense, we came in firing. Austin had a good game. I had a good game. Willie had a good game. But the defense, they actually had a good game that year, but it was just so much offensive power coming from Grambling, where it was just big plays. They'd get 2-3 stops and then boom, big play. And so it was just a back and forth battle the entire game, man. And like I said, it was, oh my goodness, it was never a moment of relaxation where it's just like, okay, we good. We ain't got to worry about it. We got this. It was never like we got in the bag. It was constantly on your toes. Like, hey, look, whenever we get back out there, we got to score. We can't get these guys the lead. Hey, we got to make sure we get the lead back. It was a crazy game. And so, like I said, whenever we sat down on that last play, and I know they had Gabe right there in the middle. Oh, Big Gabe, Carter, Ledbetter, and they got that last stop. Oh my goodness, like we just went crazy, and I feel like that was part of the reason why we didn't get to perform the way we wanted to in the championship, because that game against Grambling was like that. In a lot of the fans' minds and some of our players' minds, that was like the championship game.
Oh
So it
yeah,
was just,
that I drove from Florida for that game, so I was living in
oh yeah,
Florida at the time. Excuse me. So I drove 12 hours for that game, and just I don't know, the relief at the end. You still felt like some kind of way that guy was gonna get across the goal line, and there was gonna be more football, but it was just like it was like you say. I think it took a lot out, and Alcorn was really rolling at that time.
oh yeah,
I thought Southern hung in there in that game. You know what I mean? Because the first time they played, it was not close. But the team kind of gelled toward the end, but came up a little short. Um, let's fast forward to your junior year. Um, you were basically the guy at running back at that point, at least
yeah.
in my mind. Um, the season didn't necessarily record wise go the way the team wanted it, but I thought you had a pretty solid season that year. What are your thoughts on that season?
Well, like you said it, pretty much in a nutshell. I'm not much of an individual type of guy. And like I said, if you talk to any of my teammates, talk to anybody that knows me, I didn't really look at like, oh, I'm chasing this record, or I'm trying to do this or try to do that. The only thing I could say in my entire career, and that's even from when I was playing in Breck, I just wanted to be better than I was the year before. And so I want to have more rushing yards, more touchdowns than I had the year before. That was my only goal. And so going into that year, like you said, it was pretty much, known like, okay, he's our guy. We're gonna feed him. We're gonna rely on this guy. It's still competition, and I'm competing with other guys, but it wasn't all of the back and forth and we don't know. Everybody pretty much knew at that point, like, okay, Till's the guy. He can get it done. He's a full quarterback. All those questions have been answered. So going into that year, I think was the most relaxed I could say that I was mentally, but as far as the physical strain I put on myself going into that junior year was ridiculous. Like I really looked at the film from last year and I said, hey, your speed was good, but there was sometimes, in the pass block and sometimes running and things like that, you just weren't at the physical level that I wanted to be at. And then that year we also had Georgia, and that was the game. Like I'm not gonna I can't put a percentage on it, but it was a good percentage of the reason why I went to Southern. Stump Mitchell pretty much told me, like, hey, in 3 years, we are playing Georgia. And he's like, that's going to be the game where you're going to get to earn your stripes and really show the world, who you are as a player. And so that entire summer, it was Georgia on my mind. I was like, okay, Georgia. I'm lifting the weights. I'm thinking about Georgia. I'm running my sprints. I'm thinking about Georgia. And they had Nick Chubb at the time. They had just had Tar Gurley. And so I was like, oh, once again, it goes back to that competitive nature where I was just like, hey, man, this got to be it. We got to show these guys that we really about it. And so going into that year, I believe we had a great team. It just, we didn't have the leadership where it needed to be. We had a lot of guys that were leaders. But as far as the year before, a lot of our team was compromised of older guys and younger guys that were trying to get after it. The next year we had a lot of the younger guys that had, at this point I'm an older guy, I'm a junior, technically a senior in the classroom, but a lot of our team was majority freshmen and transfers, so we just didn't have that gel like we needed, especially going into the season. So I think we lost that year to Prairie View, and once again, Prairie View is kind of like that game, McKinley and Capital in high school. If you lose against Prairie View, they pretty much gonna roll out and they gonna have the year that you were supposed to have. And that was a heartbreak against Prairie View, man. It was
that was
just,
homecoming.
oh my goodness,
And Jonte Abear, man.
killed it, man. And like I said, it was a senior year, so I can understand, man. But like I said, that was a reality check for me, and that's when I kind of knew that I had gotten away from the us mindset, and I was too concerned about pushing myself to the max that I wasn't thinking about, all right, how can I push my teammates? How can I make sure these guys are going to be on the same level that I'm going to be on? Make sure they're going to be on the same level that Willie is on, Because like I said, that game, I believe Willie had a good game, Austin had a good game, I had a good game, and we still lost. And that was that slap in the face. That was that reality check where it's like, all right, it's past you, it's past Willie, it's past Austin. The entire team has to be on that level. The entire team has to want that level of success. And, like I said, it takes, the weakest link or break the chain. And that ended up happening that week, And like I said, we played a great game, but it was just too many simple mistakes, too many turnovers, and too many missed opportunities. Ended up losing that game by a score. And it was just, it was depressing ever since then. Lost to Grambling in the Bayou Classic. Oh, my goodness.
I don't like to talk about losses too much, but the one that sticks with me all the time is the Alcorn game. Lenard Footman came in and just I've never seen a quarterback run the ball like that guy, man. I did, I don't number one, I don't like to see nobody get hurt, but when Gibbs went down, I was like, we got
look, everybody, look, I'm telling you, the entire sideline when Gibbs went down, it was like a weight had been lifted off everybody's chest. It was like, oh my goodness, we're gonna win the game now. But and once again, I'm too critical, I'm too analytical. When he went down, I'm looking at Alcorn sideline. Like I said, I'll never praise somebody getting hurt. I just hate it. And so I wanted to beat him. I'm the type of guy, I want to beat the guy that beat me. So I wanted him to be healthy, and I wanted to beat them in the dirt with their best. And so I was on the sideline. I was upset, actually, that he got hurt. Because I was like, man, come on now. You need to fight it off, bro. Come on, we got to beat him. And I looked at the sideline, and nobody was upset. Nobody was, flustered. It was almost like they had expected it. And so I was a little confused at first. And then come on, Lenore Footman. And everybody, like, oh, the heck is this guy? We about to beat him up. Man, he took off down that sideline.
The first carry, I was like, I swear we had no guys on the field because it's like nobody touched him. And I'm like, okay, I'm like, okay, it's one play, but he just made play after play. I'm like,
no. See, that's the difference. The fans thought it was a fluke. I knew it wasn't a fluke because he was doing it too. And once again, let me remind you, it was raining cats.
It was, yes. They had a weather delay and everything.
Garbage. And he was running on that field like it was brand new turf. I'm talking about this man was walking on water, just making moves all smooth. And I'm looking at this dude like, I'll say, oh my God, please get Gibbs back in there. Because the only weakness, and this goes across the SWAC, honestly, is a running quarterback. That's one of the biggest weaknesses you're going to see across the SWAC is the ability to guard a running quarterback. And for us, literally from, all of my years down, honestly, it was just tough for us to guard against running quarterbacks. And so when he came in, he wasn't even a running quarterback. He was like Lamar Jackson before Lamar Jackson at the time. This guy really was just impossible to touch. Oh my God! They put it on us.
I like to become a fan of guys after we beat them. And I'll be like, oh man, he balled out. But you had to give him credit because he, like you said, Gibbs went down so early that you're like, okay, this guy gonna make mistakes at some point. But they jumped out like 28-7 or something like that, and it just was one of them games that you kind of want to put it behind you, but I could never put that game behind me because it just was, it was just one of them games and kind of one of them seasons where things happen that probably wouldn't normally happen. But let's jump forward to that senior year. Coming into the season, and I know you say you're not a numbers guy, but coming into that season, did you have any idea that you were on track for that record?
It was a lot of talk around it. I know that my junior year, I ended up breaking the Southern University all-time leading rusher record, and they had told me like right before the game, like, "Hey man, if you get this many yards, you're gonna break the record." And I'm just like, "Huh, that's crazy." And so I ended up breaking on like a long run against A&M. And so, once we got that record out the way, I kind of was just like, all right, whatever, wins, wins, wins. But the nickel, which is that's what the offensive line called themselves. The nickel was constantly reminding me, like, hey, bro, look, we this many yards away from the SWAC all time lead. Hey, look, and so they was constantly in my ear, like, hey, we gonna get it, we gonna get it. And so at that point, that's when it became something for me where I was like, all right, well, look, if I'm gonna do this, this is gonna be something we gonna do. Me and my teammates, my offensive line, my quarterback, I won't be able to share that with them. And so it wasn't like I was tracking it, but my dad, he definitely was tracking it. Every game he would be like, all right, look, you got this many yards to do it. But in my mind, I'm not gonna say I could care less about it, but I was more concerned about winning the championship. At the end of the day, that's all I cared about. That's all I really focused on. After getting that taste my freshman year, I wanted to have that second ring on my finger. So it was like, all right, okay, the SWAC all-time leading rushing record is there, but we still in this race right now for this championship. We had a good year last year, but at that time, it's like everybody had kind of, at that point, it was championship or bust for us, and it shows you how fast things change overnight. But it's like the fans wanted a championship and nothing less than that. And I was the type of guy where I was saying, hey, look, we're going to do everything in our power to get this championship. And so week by week, it just got closer and closer. That was probably my best year. No, yeah, it definitely was my best year as far as stat wise. At that point, I was definitely the guy that the offense ran through. The coaches, had plays designed specifically for me. They were just trying to make sure I could get in space and do well. And like I said, I had pushed my body to that point to pretty much the max where it could go as far as, athletically. It was just a lot of work that went into making sure that I would be healthy that year, that I had my speed and my power and just reading the holes and everything like that had just taken it to a whole new level. I was familiar with the offense. And so it was just everything lined up perfectly. And so when we ended up getting that record, and I said, I think that's the best thing about the record, if you ever ask me, is the fact that we did it against Alcorn University at their home.
Yes,
Oh my
and
goodness, that was the best thing.
and won the game because
Of course,
it
of
had been
course.
so long since we beat them. But
Uh,
that was a great game, and that was like I was at that game, and it was a game where Southern had control basically most of the game, but again, Lenard's footman tried his best to take that one, but I thought I
got
thought
it.
the offense made some big plays, defense made a couple big plays at the end, and we got out of there with a big victory.
Oh yeah, like I said, it was major. Like I said, we definitely had a good time. A lot of people didn't expect us to come in and do what we did, but we came in and took care of business.
Now, one Prairie View seems like a team that you typically had a good game against. Was there anything like about them that was it like any schemes they ran, or just the fact that they had a little extra energy before a game that got you going? Because you seem like you did really well against Prairie View whenever we played them.
Like I said, that goes back. Like I said, with Jonte going to Prairie View, it was kind of like I was, once again, it's one of those situations where it's like he might not know it, but Jonte was always a rival for me in my mind. Literally going back all the way back to Glen Oaks Elementary. I used to always look at Jonte. He always had the moves and the speed, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna be better than that guy. So by the time we got to middle school, I didn't play. I went to Southern Lab. We didn't get to play against each other. But when we went to high school, you went to Glen Oaks. I went to McKinley. So we would compete there. And then when we went to college, it was the same thing. We both went to schools in the same conference. So it was constantly competing with each other. But, I just had that hate built up in my heart for Prairie View, from the beginning. So by the time we got to my senior year, I had pretty much figured out their defenses that they ran. I knew their personnel pretty much on a personal basis. That was one thing that Coach Joseph harped to me. You need to know who you're going up against. So I knew all their guys. I knew that pretty much what their coaches like to run. I knew their defensive fronts. And so it was easy for me. It's like I almost saw the game in slow motion. where I could just pick and choose what I wanted to do.
Yeah, again, another big game in Prairie View. That's a place that Southern has a lot of success. We didn't go to Prairie View often before, but now it seems like every time we go, we win. So I always like that. One thing I noticed about these, basically your career at Southern is Southern probably could have won more championships, but they ran into a couple of really, really great Grambling teams during that time, and Alcorn
Yeah.
had a pretty strong run. Um, but I how was it playing against a team like Grambling at that point? Because they had 2014 they were kind of getting there, but 15 and 16 they kind of turned the corner. What was it like playing against a team that I would probably say was probably one of the better teams in the SWAC at that point?
Oh no, it was definitely a humbling experience. Like I said, they brought in a lot of different guys through the transfer portal and through different means, to where it's like they were constantly up in their game, and so their recruiting efforts at that time was amazing, man. Like I said, I hated losing to them, but at the same time, you have to give respect where it's due. They had some great guys where you look at Chad Williams, your Kincaid, your Verlin Hunter. Um, Even on that defense, it was constant competition when it came from that side. We would always kind of keep a little eye looking at how they doing as far as leading up to the championship game, which is the Bayou Classic. But I just it was tough to be on that same side of them. At the end of the day, that's how I prefer it for Southern and Grambling to be the premier teams in the SWAC. Like I said, Alcorn had an amazing run, but at that time Alcorn was on the side where, as far as their path to the championship, was nowhere near as hard as it was for Southern and Grambling. At that time, we were like LSU and Alabama, where we both top ranked teams, but only one of us could make it to that championship. And so, like I said, every year it was get to that Bayou Classic, and it was like 1 and 2 pretty much going up against each other, and whoever wins that, gonna get to take it to that next level.
Yeah, now I'm gonna say one thing, and this is as a fan, as a player, I know none of that really matters, but those Navy uniforms y'all wore a couple times, those things were very unlucky, man. We lost the Prairie
Oh
View,
man,
Alcorn, Grambling. I was like, it got to the point where I saw those Navy uniforms, I was like, uh-oh. But that's just a fan thing. I know you guys don't really get caught up in that kind of stuff, but as a fan, I'm like looking for any edge I can find, and that was
like I said, some of the guys believed in that stuff, but like I said, with me, I'm more than I could go out there, with some socks and a jock strap on, and I'm gonna still do my best to, to play as hard as I can. But some guys really believe that though. On the team, they believed it. They was like, oh man, we wearing the Navy uniform. We about to
man,
lose.
don't
I was
tell me
like, come
that.
on, man. Like, this junk don't matter, but it don't matter what we got on. We just gotta go out there and play our best game.
Oh man, don't tell me that, man. I was really I was really happy that I was the only one that felt that way. Now I know.
Oh no, a lot of people believe that, man.
Woo,
And
it
like I said,
was
you
it
can't
was.
argue with it honestly, because we just never really
Yeah,
played how we were supposed to when we got out there.
so yeah, when when I saw those uniforms at the Bayou Classic that year, I was like, whew, it's gonna be tough. But it's Grambling, so I'm never gonna feel like we're gonna lose the Grambling in anything. So I was like, we're just this gonna be the game. We get it done in them. But it don't happen. But that's football. Um, let's talk a little bit about some of the places that you played in the SWAC. Was there anywhere on the road that you enjoyed playing?
Oh, Jackson, Mississippi has the best, obviously the Superdome, but as far as, oh my, well, honestly, man, now that I think about it, there was a lot of places. So we're going order from third to first. So third is going to be Alcorn, just because, they come out packed, all the beautiful women and all that good stuff. And it just smell like a cookout when you go out there and you get in the stadium and they whoop, 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 whoop. And so, like I said, it was always packed. Jaguar Nation always travel, but that gave you that feel where it's like you're a gladiator. But then in a close second, and first and second, well, yeah, we'll go ahead and say second to be Jackson State, because that's the true gladiator feeling. You in there and you just everywhere you could do the full turn like it's a movie. You just see people just screaming and shouting, and you in the middle and you just ready to go to war with everybody and anybody that come out. So that was, that'd be my number two. And then my number one has to be the Superdome because that's one where, like I said earlier, I dreamed of playing at as a high schooler, you know, in that championship. And so to play in there, you know, on a national stage, NBC, I was like, oh yeah, this is it. You know, this is where you really pull out all the stops. You got to show them, you know, show the world what you about.
Yeah, I agree with all of that because when you in Jackson, it's serious business. Even even up in the crowd, man. You know that's one of the few places where the fans they sit in a mingle. Like Jackson people sit right next to you. They love to talk. You know, Southern people love to talk too. So it's a lot of talking. So it puts the extra oomph in the game. And I've heard some guys say that on the field, it's a lot of talking between the teams
Oh yeah.
in that Southern Jackson game. So that's to me, that's probably the more intense rival as, from an outside perspective, is that Southern and Jackson is very, very intense. Southern and Grambling is intense, but personally, I don't feel it the same.
No, like I said, Southern and Jackson it's a real love-hate relationship there, you know, because the bands they hate each other. With Grambling, it's like we are programmed to hate Grambling. Everybody knows that we hate Grambling. You know, it is what it is. But that Bayou Classic is just it's a destined story tale. You know, it's the Bayou Classic. It has a name. Everybody wants to go to it. It's in New Orleans, it's NBC. So it has a lot going into it. But like I said, some years where it's just not that animosity isn't just there. It's just like, okay, well, it's the Bayou Classic, so we got to get up. But that Jackson game is just the feel of it. You know, it's like you could feel the animosity and the tension every year. You know, you just oh my goodness, nothing like it, man. It's nothing like it.
Yeah, like I said, I just, I know that whenever I walk into the Superdome, Grambling people gonna talk. They're gonna talk noise, but it's just Jackson people got to wear talking noise that can get under your skin if you're not careful. They just know how to push your buttons, and so you have to be in that same energy, and it makes for a very good atmosphere when the game is good, and it makes for a great atmosphere when you win in big because then you get to see them kind of sneak out of the stadium, but. It's one of those things. But was there any team that was like surprisingly intense to you, like somebody who maybe you didn't expect in the conference to kind of come with a high intensity against you? Like maybe they felt more that the game was bigger for them and not for you.
Well, like I said A&M was always that team where it's like they kind of just they would always come with it early and then it'll kind of die down later. But they would come out initially like we hate Southern. Like they were just trying to kill us, like I said. But it was a lot of teams like that just across the SWAC period. Your Jackson, Prairie View, Alcorn, Grambling. Those are gonna be your guys that you're pretty much competing with that top spot. But a lot of the teams that wasn't playing on a top tier level, they were still focused to the point where it was like, all right, a lot of people don't think we can win this game, so that's why we're gonna come out and we're gonna go our hardest against Southern. So every week was a constant battle and just having to remind people who they are and put them in their place. Like, hey. Southern run the SWAC. Relax.
I like that. I like to ask this to everybody that's played there. And I've heard so many stories, but what was it like playing at Valley, man? I know the field used to be so bad. I ask Valley guys the same thing, so I got to ask everybody.
Valley is hot, humid. The grass is 4 inches, so you got to make sure you lifting your legs. It looked like a high school stadium. I just couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. I was like, why? What the heck do they have us in out here, man? It was just a setup from the jump. As soon as we got off the bus to that small locker room, both of the locker rooms right next to each other, separated by a gate. I was just like, oh, what the heck is going on up here, man? This ain't it. Like I said, so it was definitely a forgettable experience. I'll say that much.
Yeah, like I said, that's that's one of those questions I love to ask everybody because I have yet to hear anybody say different. Even the Valley guys I've talked to, they say the same thing. So it's like I just love to hear people say it because the minute the question is asked, everybody faces the same, and I just love it. Let's take a little step away from the field. Being a guy that kind of came in without a scholarship, you got to kind of do, you got to grind on the field and in the classroom. How difficult was it to maintain that balance?
True. Well, like I say, honestly, it wasn't too hard at first. That first semester was pretty easy. I dedicated myself to the books. I was focused. I said I'm not partying. I wasn't doing none of that stuff. But that second semester, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh man, we had a good time. We must have went to parties almost every night. We were just getting after it. Oh my goodness. And then, I ignored a lot of the females that first semester too. And so going into that spring semester, I started getting a little buzz around campus. So people started knowing who I was. It made it easy to talk to the females to the point where, it's always easy to talk to females, but when they know your name before you talk to them, it make it too easy almost. And so it was a spiral downhill immediately. And that's when I realized, like, this is why a lot of people don't graduate, is because it's just so much stuff to do. It's so much fun to get into, and before you know it, you done had all of these memories, and your grades are horrible. So it was definitely tough. I didn't get a good grasp until my junior year. I would say, I still maintain above a 3.0, but I wanted to be like a 3.8, 4.0 student, in my head. But it was tough to balance football, to balance school, and then to balance having a social life as well. And trying to do all three is like you can only really honestly do two at the best of your ability. And I was bought in with doing football at the top of my ability. That was just who I was. So sometimes school will take the back burner, sometimes my social life will take the back burner. But I just had to keep on finding ways to try to do all the work I could on the front end so I could just relax a little bit on the back end.
Well, yeah, it's tough. I think that second semester is tough for everybody because the fall is week to week something going on. Spring is not like going on at Southern, and it's always that's when people start to really figure out who everybody is and see you around.
Yeah.
So it makes it a little bit tough. But what are you up to now?
Now I'm a project manager with an industrial company, Delta Tech Service. I pretty much lead projects, schedule projects, plan, and all that fun stuff. I actually have some things I have to look at tonight whenever we finish up. So I'm looking forward to that. I taught after I played professionally. I taught for about 4 years. I taught and coached. I really liked that, but the money just wasn't where I needed it to be, especially with my horrible spending habits. So I said, hey, look, man, I got to do something different. So I jumped into the industrial field. But I still do a little training and mentoring on the side for the guys. But I said I just had to do something different. And I said I like this. I like this field. It's pretty fun. I'm currently in graduate school. This is gonna be my last semester to get my master's. And after that, I'll be looking at some options to see what I want to do going forward.
Well, congratulations on that, man. I'm glad to hear you're moving upward and onward with your career. Um, we're gonna start to wrap this up because, like you said, you got some things to do. I don't want to keep you from your work. Definitely appreciate you coming through. Is there anything you like to say to the fans out there before we get out of here?
Hey, like I said, we gotta support, and like I said, support means supporting with your wallets, whether it be $15 or $50. Bringing somebody else to the game with you. We got an amazing tradition in the SWAC that goes back hundreds of years, and that was one of the biggest things that I had to look at when I chose Southern University was the tradition, the availability that was here, that was then, that's going to be in the future. For our kids and everything like that. You just have to trust it. You have to love it. And even though it might not treat you the way you want to be treated sometimes, or you might have to go through the things that you might not have to go through at other schools, you have to realize that it's an investment in the future. That's an investment in your people. So, like I say, go Jags every day, all day. Um, that's pretty much it. I love all other swag schools as long as they're not in the way of Southern University. That's just the way it is.
And that's how it always is. I come from a swag family. Sister, well, my niece went to Prairie View, which got cousins went to Groundling, got
Right.
cousins went to Jackson, Alcorn. My dad went to Valley. So one of my good friends is working at Bama State right now. So it's like you always in tune. A lot of great TSU people I know. So it's family, but like you say on Saturday. I don't. It's no love lost. We could talk after the game, but during this Jags all day. So, man, I definitely like to thank you for stopping by, man, and chopping it up with us. And we look forward to seeing what's next for you in the future. And you always welcome here if you ever want to stop back through.
Oh man, I appreciate you for having me, man. Y'all have a good one.
All right, everybody. Well, that's gonna do it for us, man. We'll be back with another edition of SWAC Talk tomorrow, and we got a live SWAC smoke as usual on Thursday, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. So y'all stay tuned with us. Hit that subscription button, and we'll catch y'all on the rebound.